Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, we drift into the deep blue, where myths rise and waves remember. The ocean is endless, yet it carries secrets older than stone, older than fire, older than time itself. Among these secrets, one tale shimmers like sunlight on water, the story of Poseidon and the Sunken Oracle. Some say the sea holds voices. They travel with the tide, quiet as whispers, clear as dreams. Long ago, those whispers led mortals to an oracle, a voice that spoke from the heart of the deep. It guided kings and wanderers, sailors and dreamers. Its words shaped choices, destinies, and journeys. But storms came, the temples sank, and silence grew where once the oracle sang. Now the ocean holds that silence, guarding it with coral, with shadows, with mystery. Still, legends say the oracle has not vanished. It waits, resting beneath waves, waiting to speak again. Tonight, let us follow that legend. Let us listen to the tide, to the pulse of the sea. Perhaps, if we listen closely, the ocean will open. Perhaps it will tell us its story once more. So breathe deep, lean closer, and step with me into the waters of myth and memory. The night is calm. The sea stretches far, dark as velvet, soft as a cradle. Waves touch the shore, not in fury, but in rhythm, like a heartbeat echoing through the sand. Sailors once said that when the wind falls silent, the sea begins to whisper. Not in words we know, but in sounds like lullabies, drifting through shells, weaving through foam. Children listened with wide eyes. They swore the ocean called them by name, gently, as if it knew them. Fishermen leaned close to the tide. They heard promises of calm, warnings of storms, dreams of journeys. Legends grew, stories spread. The whispers were said to be the breath of something greater. Not only waves, not only salt, not only tide, but the hidden voice of the deep. And so they spoke of the Sunken Oracle, a voice lost to the world above. It was said to live where no light lingers, far below, among coral and silence. There the currents carried secrets, and the rocks remembered every word ever spoken. The oracle, they said, was once a beacon, calling from a temple now hidden beneath waves. Its voice was not harsh, not commanding, but soothing, like rain on thirsty soil. Kings journeyed to hear it. Wanderers sought it in dreams. Sailors prayed it would guide them. And the ocean answered, sometimes clear, sometimes faint, always enough to stir belief. But time is long. Empires rise, temples fall, seas claim what stone cannot hold forever. One night, the sea grew restless. Clouds gathered, waves turned heavy, and the temple vanished. It sank into the silence, swallowed by shadow, guarded by coral, wrapped in mystery. The voice did not vanish, but it grew faint, like a song half forgotten. Only the whispers remained, drifting through shells, echoing in dreams, carried by tide. Generations passed, yet the sea still hummed with its secret. Travelers stood at shorelines and swore they heard words slip through the foam. Old mariners told of voices beneath the deck, singing softly when the moon was full. The whispers gave comfort, but also questions. What did the sea want to say? Some believed it was warning of storms. Others thought it offered blessings. But the wisest among them said it was calling, waiting, reaching for listeners. For though the oracle was sunken, it was not forgotten. Its voice remained alive, caught between silence and song, waiting for one who could hear. A dreamer, perhaps, or a seeker, or a soul quiet enough to listen. Tonight, as you sit with me, let the waves wash over your thoughts. Close your eyes and lean closer to the rhythm of the tide. Do you hear it? A faint murmur, softer than breath, older than stars. That is the beginning of the tale. The ocean is whispering. It whispers to the shore. It whispers to the wind. It whispers to you. And somewhere, far below, the oracle stirs, waiting to be found once more. The story begins not with thunder, not with storm, but with a whisper. A whisper carried by tides, offered by the sea and heard by the heart. So let us listen together. For the ocean has begun to speak again. Far above the waves, mortals live their lives, unaware of eyes watching from beneath the sea. Poseidon, lord of the deep, was not only a god of storms, but a keeper of silence and secrets. He watched tides turn, ships sail, and winds rise, always present, though seldom seen. When sailors raised their hands in prayer, he felt it ripple like currents brushing against coral. When children played at the shore, their laughter touched his realm like sunlight scattering on water. Poseidon's power was vast, yet he was not only thunder and quake. He was also balance. He knew the ocean must breathe gently as well as roar. It must cradle as well as challenge. From his throne of pearl and salt, Poseidon listened to the memory of waves. The whispers of the oracle reached even him, though they were faint, fragile, like drifting foam. He felt their rhythm still alive, weaving through the abyss, refusing to vanish completely. And Poseidon, though mighty, carried a quiet sorrow for the silence of the oracle. For once it had sung not only for mortals, but for gods, for the world, for harmony. Its voice was a bridge between sky and sea, earth and tide, mortal and divine. Now the bridge lay hidden, its echoes faint, waiting for someone who could listen again. Poseidon did not rage at this loss. Instead, he watched patiently as he always had. The sea does not hurry, he thought. The tide always returns, the moon always answers. So he waited, his gaze fixed not only on the abyss, but on the world above. He saw mortals searching stars for meaning, wandering temples for answers, longing for signs. And he wondered, which among them could hear the call of the deep? Not kings in their crowns, heavy with power. Not warriors, loud with pride. But perhaps a dreamer, one whose heart could hear what ears could not. Poseidon sent no thunder, no quake, no wave to shatter. Instead, he sent signs. Gentle waves lapping in patterns, shells washed ashore with strange markings, dreams filled with tides. Mortals thought them chance, but those who listened felt something deeper. A pull, like a hand in water, guiding them toward the horizon, toward the unknown. The god's watchful eyes softened as he saw these seekers pause and wonder. For that was all it took, wonder. The first step to hearing what sleeps beneath. And so, Poseidon's presence lingered in quiet ways. A shift in current, a shimmer in light. A wave that rose to meet the moon, then bowed as if in greeting. Those who noticed felt a hush in their hearts, as though the ocean breathed their name. Poseidon did not need to speak loudly. His whispers lived in tide, in salt, in silence. And among all his watchful waiting, he carried hope. Hope that one mortal would step beyond fear, beyond noise, into listening. For the oracle had not died. It dreamed, hidden, patient as the sea itself. Poseidon, with eyes like storms and calm alike, guarded that dream. And he knew the time would come when the silence would break once more. But first, the world above must remember how to listen. And so he waited, calm as a horizon, watching every ripple with care. The sea spoke through him, not with rage, but with quiet, endless patience. For the ocean knows, all things return, and in time, so will the voice of the oracle. Deep beneath the restless sea where sunlight fades into twilight, lies a temple forgotten by time. Its columns, once proud and gleaming, now lean beneath the weight of coral and sand. The walls are dressed in seaweed, the arches softened by years of current and tide. Fishes drift through open doorways, as if they are worshippers gliding through sacred halls. Once, voices filled this temple. Once, firelight and prayer rose to the vaulted ceiling. Now, silence reigns, broken only by the crackle of shells and the soft hum of the deep. This temple was home to the Oracle, the voice that united land and sea. Pilgrims would kneel upon its stones, seeking guidance from mysteries older than stars. And the Oracle would answer, speaking not from fear, but from harmony, calm, and clarity. But storms do not ask permission, and seas do not yield to stone. One fateful night, waves claimed the temple, drawing it slowly into their embrace. Stones shattered, light dimmed, and the temple sank into the darkened abyss. Yet, it did not die. It became a sanctuary beneath the sea. Coral wove its patterns across the pillars, like tapestries gifted by the ocean itself. Anemones blossomed in corners where once candles had burned. Schools of fish shimmered like stained glass windows, scattering light through the ruins. Though forgotten by mortals, the temple lived on, breathing in rhythm with the tide. Every stone held memory. Every arch whispered of prayers once spoken. The oracle's chamber still stood, though hushed, wrapped in shadows of the deep. Its altar was covered in shells, its floor patterned with sand, its silence heavy with waiting. Sometimes, when the currents were still, a faint glow stirred in the chamber. Not fire, not torchlight, but the memory of voice, the echo of prophecy. The sea itself seemed to lean close, listening for what once had been. Creatures of the deep passed through with reverence, never lingering, never disturbing. Even they felt the weight of something holy that slumbered within the ruins. Legends told by sailors said the temple was not gone, only hidden. Those with pure hearts, they claimed, could still find it beneath the waves. And if they listened, they would hear the oracle breathe once more. But the way was not marked by maps, nor revealed by stars. It was guarded by silence, by patience, by the endless watching of the sea. The temple waits, eternal, like a heart still beating beneath layers of time. It is a place of balance, where the mortal and divine once touched hands. And though centuries have passed, the ocean has not forgotten. The tide remembers. The coral remembers. The stones themselves remember. They hold the voice of the oracle like a secret, waiting for a listener. Some say at night, if you place your ear to a seashell, you hear more than waves. You hear the hum of the temple, the faint sigh of its sleeping heart. Perhaps it is only imagination. Perhaps it is truth carried by the deep. But one truth is certain. The temple remains, veiled in mystery, untouched by time. And somewhere within its ruins, the oracle lingers, waiting for a voice to answer. So when the waves call your name and silence feels heavy, remember, there is a temple beneath the sea, forgotten yet alive. And its story is not finished. It waits for you as it once waited for kings. This is the temple of the oracle, hidden, eternal, whispering still in the dark. The oracle was once a voice of clarity, rising from the depths like sunlight through glassy waves. Its words guided not only mortals, but the balance of sea and sky, land and water, breath and tide. Every prophecy was like a tide itself, gentle, steady, inevitable, shaping lives and choices. Kings left its chamber with hope. Sailors found courage in its calm. Dreamers found paths unseen. The oracle did not speak of power or war. It spoke of harmony, of listening, of patience. But then silence came, sudden as dusk falling across the shore. When the temple sank, So too did its voice, muffled by stone, drowned by time. Mortals waited at the shoreline. They placed offerings on the sand. They prayed to the tide. But the sea gave no reply, only waves returning to shore, only foam fading into air. The silence was heavy, not cruel but endless, like a pause that stretched across centuries. Generations passed, and still no word rose from the abyss. The oracle, once trusted as eternal, became a memory. Some said it had gone forever, that the ocean had chosen silence over speech. Others believed the oracle had grown weary of human ears that failed to listen deeply. And yet, when children pressed shells to their ears, they swore they heard voices, soft, broken, incomplete, like fragments of a song caught on the wind. Those fragments kept the legend alive, for silence cannot erase what the heart remembers. Sailors still told stories at night, beneath stars that glimmered like scattered pearls. They spoke of the oracle's silence as if it were awaiting breath. A pause, not an ending. A stillness, not a death. The ocean, after all, does not lose. It only hides. It only holds. Poseidon himself knew the oracle lingered, though its song had dimmed. He listened in the stillness of the deep, hearing the faintest echo. And he wondered if silence itself was a message. For silence can teach what words cannot. It can sharpen the ear, deepen the heart, prepare the soul for what will come. The oracle's silence was not empty. It was alive with memory, alive with promise. In the quiet, the sea held a prophecy yet to be spoken. And so, the silence stretched, waiting for a mortal who would not fear stillness, one who would lean close enough to hear the faintest murmur in the dark. Legends grew around this silence. Some called it a curse, others called it a test. But the truth was simpler. The oracle was not gone, only resting. Like seeds beneath soil, like dawn beneath night, its voice was gathering strength. And when the time was right, it would rise again, soft as a wave's first touch. The world had only to wait and to listen. For silence, too, is part of the story. And the oracle's silence was never truly empty. It was a breath held in the depths, a song waiting to return. And those who stood at the shore, those who leaned into the whisper of shells, they were closer than they knew to hearing the ocean speak once more. The oracle had not ended. It had only fallen silent, as the sea sometimes falls still. And beyond that stillness, a new voice stirred, faint but certain, patient as eternity. This was the silence of the oracle, a silence filled not with absence, but with promise. Far from the roar of harbors, in a quiet village by the shore, lived a dreamer. This dreamer was not a king, nor a priest, nor a sailor hardened by storms. They were simple, a watcher of skies, a listener to winds, a soul hungry for wonder. Each night they lingered by the water, tracing constellations mirrored in the tide. The ocean had always called to them, not in fear, but in familiarity, like kin. They spoke to the sea as others speak to friends, whispering secrets into the waves. And sometimes the sea seemed to answer, in rhythms that echoed their own breath. The villagers thought them odd, lost in reverie, too quiet for the rush of daily life. But the dreamer did not mind, for their world was larger than the village shore. Their heart was tuned to something vast, a silence that hummed like hidden song. One night, beneath a moon pale as pearl, the dreamer's sleep filled with visions. They saw water rising, not as flood, but as a path, gleaming with silver light. They walked it as if air, each step buoyed by unseen hands of tide. At the end stood a temple, its pillars veiled in coral, its walls alive with glow. The dreamer reached for the doors, and before they opened, a whisper came. Not loud, not clear, but like a breath against the skin. A voice beneath thought. Come. The dreamer awoke with salt upon their lips, though no sea had touched them. Their heart beat quick, not in fear, but in recognition, as if they had been summoned. From that night on, sleep was never silent. Dreams returned again and again, carrying the same whisper, the same calling. The dreamer began to see signs in waking life too. Shells on the sand marked in spirals like written words. Waves lapping in threes, as if chanting, as if reminding. Birds circling above the shore at dusk, forming patterns like symbols long forgotten. The dreamer listened, more deeply than before, until the world itself felt alive with guidance. They began to believe what others had forgotten, that the oracle still breathed, and somehow, impossibly, it had chosen them. Why a simple dreamer? Why not a ruler, a scholar, a priest trained in sacred ways? Perhaps because a heart uncluttered can hear more easily what the world whispers. Perhaps because a dreamer listens with no demand, only wonder. So the dreamer followed the signs, walking each day to the shore, sitting with the sea. Sometimes they wept, for the pull was strong, heavier than longing, deeper than belonging. Sometimes they laughed, for joy rose unbidden, as if the ocean itself were laughing too. The people shook their heads, calling the dreamer foolish, but the dreamer's resolve grew. For in their dreams, the temple shone brighter, and the voice whispered closer. Come. The word was not a command, but an invitation, gentle as a tide lifting a boat. The dreamer accepted, though they knew not the path, only that it led into the sea. And so, one morning before dawn, they walked to the water's edge. The waves reached forward, brushing their feet like a greeting. The dreamer closed their eyes and breathed, feeling the ocean breathe back. It was not madness, nor illusion, but calling. The chosen dreamer had heard the oracle, and the journey was about to begin. Dawn spilled soft gold across the shore as the dreamer stood alone before the restless tide. The village still slept, its fires dim, its streets silent, except for gulls circling above. The sea, however, was awake, humming with a low rhythm that stirred the dreamer's heart. Each wave that touched their feet felt warmer, as though guiding rather than retreating. The whisper from their dreams echoed faintly in the morning air. Come. It was not thunderous, not commanding, but intimate, like a secret shared between soul and sea. The dreamer breathed deeply, closing their eyes, letting the salt wind kiss their skin. For the first time, they did not feel small before the vast horizon. They felt chosen, part of something greater, woven into a story older than memory. The dreamer stepped forward, and the water embraced them gently, lifting their weight. It was not resistance, but welcome, the tide parting like a path to be followed. The sea was alive with shimmer, light dancing across its surface like silver runes. Fish darted near, curious, unafraid, as if recognizing the dreamer's presence. Each movement beneath the surface seemed arranged, purposeful, as though the ocean itself guided them. The dreamer swam, yet it felt effortless, like gliding on a current unseen by others. Beneath, the blue deepened into hues of sapphire and emerald, each shade alive with mystery. The deeper they went, the louder the silence became, pulsing with unseen voices. They remembered the stories whispered in their youth, of an oracle lost beneath coral. Now, each breath felt drawn not only from lungs, but from something eternal. The dreamer's heart beat with the rhythm of the sea, strong and unyielding. Creatures appeared from shadows, glowing faintly, their forms gentle, their eyes filled with calm. They circled, not to block, but to guide, swimming in spirals like living constellations. The dreamer followed their path, entranced by patterns that mirrored the stars above. It was as though sky and sea had become one, folding into a single vast map. Soon, the currents grew stronger, pulling the dreamer toward a place deeper still. They did not resist, for they trusted the ocean's hand, patient and steady. A cavern appeared, its entrance framed with coral and seaweed like a forgotten gate. From within, a faint light shimmered, soft as moonlight seen through water. The dreamer's heart quickened, for they knew what waited beyond that threshold. Not answers yet, but presence. Not words yet, but welcome. They pressed forward, and the water grew still, like breath held in anticipation. Inside the cavern, silence reigned, yet it was a silence full, not empty. The walls pulsed faintly with bioluminescence, shapes forming patterns like sacred script. Every flicker seemed alive, carrying meaning just beyond understanding. The dreamer reached out, their hand brushing coral, and the glow brightened in response. It was as if the sea recognized them, marking their arrival with gentle radiance. Then, from the stillness, a low hum began, rising, filling the cavern with vibration. It was the voice of the oracle, faint but undeniable, carried through stone and tide. The dreamer felt it within their bones, in their breath, in their heart's rhythm. It did not speak words yet, but its presence was overwhelming, tender, immense. The dreamer closed their eyes, surrendering to the hum, letting it flow through them. The water, the light, the silence, all became one vast song, ancient and alive. And within that song, the dreamer felt the truth. The journey had only just begun. The sea had opened its arms, the oracle had stirred, and destiny was in motion. In the cavern's glow, the dreamer waited, patient, listening, ready for the next whisper. And from the depths, softer than breath, the oracle spoke again. Come closer. The cavern glowed with living light, and the dreamer felt the water still around them. It was as if the sea itself had paused, holding its breath for what was to come. The hum of the oracle deepened, echoing through stone, through coral, through the dreamer's bones. It was not sound alone, but vibration, like the earth's own pulse beneath the waves. The dreamer floated, suspended, heart steady, ears open to the song beneath silence. Then the hum shaped itself into something more, a voice ancient yet tender. Child of shore and sky, it said, you have come where many dared not. The words were not heard, but felt, pressed gently into thought like ripples on water. The dreamer closed their eyes, surrendering, letting each phrase wash through their spirit. You seek not power nor gold, but truth, and that is why you were called. The oracle's tone was both vast and intimate, like an ocean speaking as a friend. The world has forgotten how to listen, yet you have heard the silence. The dreamer's chest ached, not from fear but from awe at being recognized. They wanted to answer, but no voice left their lips, only breath, only trembling. And still the oracle understood, for the sea requires no words, only presence. Long ago my song guided kings, dreamers and wanderers, the oracle whispered. But when greed deafened ears, I fell silent, waiting for one who could truly hear. The dreamer's heart burned with wonder, realizing they were chosen not by rank, but by listening. You are that one, the oracle continued, its glow pulsing with each phrase. The cavern brightened, and coral walls revealed murals painted in living light. Scenes of ships guided by stars, of temples rising from shore, of mortals seeking wisdom. All bore the mark of the oracle's voice, woven into history like tide into sand. The dreamer drifted closer, watching patterns move, shifting into new shapes before their eyes. They saw an image of themselves, small but radiant, standing at the edge of sea and sky. They saw waves carrying them deeper, toward something vast and waiting. The oracle's voice softened, as if lowering itself to whisper directly into their heart. The journey is not to find me, but to remember me, and through me, the sea itself. The dreamer trembled, for the words were both gift and responsibility, both light and weight. The silence was my test, the oracle continued, and you endured with patience. Now you will carry my voice, not in song, but in spirit, to those who have forgotten. The cavern filled with rising notes, harmonies of water striking stone, of fish weaving currents. It was not music for the ears, but for the soul, weaving calm and courage together. The dreamer felt strength bloom inside them, not loud, but steady, like a tide that never fails. They reached out again, touching the coral, and the glow surged warmly around their hand. The oracle's final words lingered, soft but unshakable. Carry silence as you carry song. Both hold truth. Both will guide you. The dreamer opened their eyes, finding the cavern brighter, the water shimmering with light. The voice quieted, but not in absence. It now lived within the dreamer's heart. They were no longer only a listener. They were now a vessel, carrying the memory of the oracle forward. And as they turned toward the path out of the cavern, the sea itself seemed to bow. The journey had shifted, and the dreamer was no longer merely chosen. They were awakened. The dreamer left the cavern with the oracle's voice echoing in their soul. The water outside felt different now, brighter, as if charged with hidden meaning. Creatures of the deep swam alongside, watching silently, their eyes glowing like lanterns. Each flick of their tails seemed to guide the dreamer forward, deeper into mystery. The ocean no longer felt endless. It felt purposeful, filled with paths unseen before. Yet with purpose came challenge, for the sea tests those it chooses. Currents shifted suddenly, swirling like walls, pulling and pressing with unseen force. The dreamer struggled to remain steady, heart pounding, lungs aching for calm. But then they remembered the oracle's words. Silence is also a guide. They stilled themselves, closing their eyes, listening not with ears, but with spirit. And in that stillness, the current loosened, opening a narrow path of calm. The dreamer drifted through, learning that surrender could overcome where strength could not. Deeper still they swam, until darkness wrapped them like a vast, starless night. No glow from coral, no shimmer from fish, only blackness stretching in every direction. Fear stirred, cold and sharp, but the dreamers steadied their breath. They whispered softly into the void, as once they had whispered to the waves. And in reply, faint sparks appeared, glowing like fireflies, weaving constellations in the dark. They gathered, shaping patterns that mirrored skies the dreamer had traced on land. The ocean had given them stars once more, not above, but beneath. Guided by those constellations, they swam until light shimmered faintly ahead. The glow revealed a vast field of kelp, swaying like a forest of emerald banners. Each stalk towered high, thick as pillars, their leaves brushing like whispers in wind. It was beautiful, but the path was tangled, uncertain, easy to lose. The dreamer pressed on, weaving through, careful not to be caught. Yet the forest seemed alive, shifting, curling, as if testing their resolve. Vines brushed their arms, tugged gently, pulling them off course. Panic rose, but then they remembered. Patience is stronger than haste. They slowed their strokes, moving gently, letting the kelp yield instead of fighting. The path opened, revealing a clearing where light poured from above. In the center swam a great turtle, ancient and slow, its shell marked with runes. Its eyes met the dreamers, deep and timeless, and the sea grew quiet. Without words, the turtle's gaze spoke. Trials are not meant to break, but to teach. The dreamer bowed their head, honoring the silent wisdom of the guardian. The turtle drifted aside, leaving the way open, blessing their journey onward. Past the kelp forest, the water widened, vast and blue once again. The dreamer felt changed, stronger not by force, but by listening, patience, and trust. The oracle's voice stirred faintly within, not speaking, but humming approval. Every trial had meaning, shaping them not for glory, but for understanding. And as they rose toward the next horizon beneath the waves, they understood. The sea would not grant them answers easily. It would shape them through silence, through darkness, through the tests of its depths. The dreamers swam onward, steady, carrying both the silence and the song within. For they now knew each challenge was a conversation, a lesson given by the sea. And with each lesson, they drew closer to the heart of the oracle's promise. The dreamers swam onward, leaving the kelp forest behind, carrying the turtle's wisdom like a lantern. The sea grew calm again, as if preparing them for something hidden, something deeply personal. Waves no longer rushed. Instead, they pulsed, like a heartbeat, slow and steady, echoing life itself. Ahead, a faint shimmer appeared, brighter than coral, softer than the stars of the deep. The dreamer approached, curious, heart steady, soul open to whatever the ocean wished to show. It was not coral, nor light, nor fireflies. It was a mirror made entirely of water. It floated in the depths, circular, vast, reflecting even where no light existed. The dreamer drew closer, and the mirror rippled, pulling them gently into its shimmering frame. On the surface, a reflection appeared, not the body they knew, but something deeper. It was their spirit, raw and unguarded, shaped by choices, fears, and quiet strengths. The reflection spoke without words, a voice felt within more than heard aloud. Who are you without the sea's guidance? Who are you when no currents carry you? The dreamer hesitated, unsure, for the sea had always been both cradle and teacher. But silence lingered, urging them to look inward, not outward, for the answer. They saw memories rise, moments of doubt, of triumph, of silence met with courage. The reflection shifted, showing them standing on shore as a child, whispering to waves. It showed nights spent watching stars, learning patience from the rhythm of the tides. It showed the cavern where the oracle's voice first touched their spirit with guidance. The mirror reminded them that they were not shaped by the sea alone. They had carried their own strength long before Poseidon's currents found them. The dreamer reached out, touching the surface, and ripples spread in endless circles. Each circle carried a memory, drifting outward like offerings to the ocean. One memory was fear. One was longing. One was a song whispered to the waves. And as they drifted away, the mirror whispered again, softer this time. You are not only what the sea makes you, you are what you bring to the sea. The dreamer felt warmth rise within, a fire not quenched by salt water or silence. For the first time, they realized the oracle's voice was not only external. it was also within, echoing in their spirit, waiting for them to listen. The mirror faded, the water dissolving back into the depths, leaving calm in its wake. But the dreamer carried something new now, a balance between sea and self. They swam upward, every stroke lighter, every breath steadier, as if reborn. The water shimmered again, not as a mirror, but as a path of silver light. It stretched forward, guiding them toward another horizon where mystery still waited. Creatures followed, gentle schools of fish, their scales glowing faintly like scattered stars. They circled around the dreamer as if recognizing their transformation, their new harmony. And within that circle of light and life, the dreamer whispered one promise. To the sea, I will listen, but I will not forget my own voice. The waves carried the promise away, tucking it into the ocean's endless memory. And from far below, Poseidon stirred, watching, silent as the journey continued. The dreamer, now tempered by trials and truth, swam toward what still lay unseen. For the sea had more lessons, and the oracle more secrets, yet to be revealed. The dreamers swam onward, guided by silver light, carrying the promise they whispered to the sea. The water thickened, cooler now, as if each stroke drew them deeper into ancient silence. Far below, shadows stretched wide, hinting at vast valleys carved by time itself. The sea grew darker, yet not empty. It hummed faintly, like a song too deep to hear. The dreamer slowed, listening, letting the rhythm of the abyss settle into their heart. The hum grew stronger, resolving into tones, voices layered like waves upon waves. It was not a human song, nor beast, but something older, vast, and solemn. The abyss itself seemed to sing, carrying echoes from centuries buried in the deep. The dreamer followed the sound, steady, not with fear, but with reverence. At last, the darkness broke, revealing a canyon vast as mountains drowned in water. From its walls glowed faint blue veins, pulsing softly as though alive. In the canyon's heart stood a great shell, tall as a tower, spiraled with light. The song flowed from it, weaving currents, stirring sand, calling the dreamer closer. They approached slowly, arms brushing the water, listening as the voices grew clear. The song spoke not in words, but in truths carried on tone and resonance. It spoke of beginnings, when sea and sky were one, undivided, whole. It spoke of Poseidon's vow to guard the ocean's secrets until mortals were ready. It spoke of silence, a sacred gift, where wisdom blooms when noise fades. The dreamer felt tears form, not of sorrow, but of wonder too vast to hold. They pressed a hand to the shell, and the song surged into them. Their spirit vibrated with ancient memory, like a harp strummed by unseen hands. Visions poured forth, storms raging, tides rising, temples built and buried by waves. They saw mortals pleading for guidance, and gods watching from distant thrones. The shell's voice whispered inside, "To know the oracle, you must know the sea's grief." The dreamer saw whales singing mournfully, their songs lost in endless silence. They saw coral fading, colors dimming, as the ocean endured burden and change. The abyss held not only secrets, but sorrow, stories carved by loss and endurance. The dreamer bowed their head, accepting the weight, not rejecting it. For wisdom is not only light, it is shadow carried together. The shell glowed brighter, as if approving their stillness, their acceptance of grief. The song softened, no longer heavy, now gentle like a lullaby for weary hearts. The canyon brightened faintly, its walls shimmering like glass touched by dawn. The dreamer breathed deeply, realizing the sea had given them another gift. To hear sorrow without fleeing, to honor silence without fear, was strength. The shell released its glow, the hum fading back into steady pulse. The dreamer drifted back, carrying the abyss's song inside like a sacred relic. They rose from the canyon, guided again by faint threads of silver light. Above, the sea widened, calmer, clearer, as if relieved of its own heaviness. Schools of fish gathered, circling gently, their bodies glowing with quiet rhythm. They moved as one, like a chorus, echoing the song of the abyss. The dreamer swam among them, heart steady, spirit tempered by grief and grace. They whispered softly, "I will remember the sorrow. I will carry the song." The waves accepted the vow, folding it deep into the ocean's memory. And so, with the abyss behind and the horizon before, the journey continued. The dreamer, no longer only a seeker, had become a listener of the sea. And in listening, they drew nearer still to the oracle's hidden heart. The dreamer rose through layers of water, carrying silence, sorrow, and song within their heart. The sea had tested them with current, darkness, mirrors, and voices older than memory itself. Each trial had carved them gently, like waves shaping stone, leaving wisdom in their spirit. Now the water grew brighter, touched by sunlight that reached deep, golden, and warm. The dreamer followed the beams, steady strokes guiding them to a place unknown. Ahead, cliffs of coral rose like cathedrals, vast arches glowing with sacred fire. In the center lay a chamber, its walls shimmering with pearls and ancient runes. The oracle's voice stirred again, not distant this time, but near, filling every drop. "You have walked the silence, embraced the sorrow, and listened to the sea's song. You are ready to hear what lies hidden, not as seeker, but as listener." The dreamer bowed their head, humbled, steady, awaiting the truth the sea would share. From the chamber's heart emerged a light, spiraling like a star born beneath waves. It gathered into a shape, not human, not God, but endless like the ocean. The oracle's form was both wave and flame, shifting, boundless, more felt than seen. Its voice was music, silence, memory, and tide all woven into one current. Poseidon guards the depths, but the oracle speaks for the sea's soul itself. The ocean remembers. It keeps stories no temple could hold, no mortal could bury. The dreamer listened, heart open, realizing the oracle was not only guide, but memory. Every ripple, every tide, every silence carried knowledge waiting for those who hear. "You came seeking answers," the oracle continued. "But answers are not what you need. You needed to learn to listen, to hear the ocean, and to hear yourself." The dreamer felt tears again, floating weightless, mixing with the salt of the sea. For all along, the journey was not to conquer, but to remember, to belong. The oracle's light swirled, softening, weaving itself back into coral, stone, and current. Its last whisper lingered like wind through shells. "Carry the sea within you always." The chamber faded, leaving calm, only sunlight streaming down in golden rivers. The dreamer swam upward, breaking through surface, greeted by sky vast and clear. The waves rose gently, not as trials, but as companions, carrying them forward. Seabirds wheeled above, their cries stitching sky and ocean together like thread. On the horizon, land appeared, familiar yet new, waiting for their return. The dreamer floated, arms wide, feeling sea and sky, silence and song as one. They whispered softly, "I am not only of land, nor only of sea. I am of both, a listener between worlds, a keeper of silence and song." The ocean answered with a single wave, lifting them gently, then setting them free. The journey had ended, yet also begun. for the wisdom never stops flowing like tide. The dreamer carried the oracle's gift, not as burden, but as a compass of spirit. And as they swam toward the horizon, the sea sang faintly, no longer distant. It was not a song of mystery now, but of kinship, belonging, and endless memory. The sun shone brighter, and the waves glittered as if smiling upon their promise. For Poseidon and the oracle both knew the truth. The sea was not theirs alone. It belonged to all who listened, all who honored silence, sorrow, and song. The dreamer smiled, steady, strong, and at peace, ready for whatever lay ahead. And so the tale of the Sunken Oracle closed, not in ending, but in beginning.